Okay, welcome everybody to the January 3rd meeting of Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors. Our first order of business this evening is just welcome and swear in some new board members. So I will turn that over to Jen. Thank you, Jen.
Yes. And so welcome, we're going to stand and do the oath of office.
Supervisor
Correct, Melanie?
I believe so. Everyone else has been previously sworn in.
Thank you.
Did you recognize me?
Okay. Go ahead and raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I'll leave the name blank so that you can speak your own name. I,
Lisa Gaucher,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
you have to give it to me in smaller.
Okay, usually they just like. I'll solve it. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
You solemnly swear that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
That I will bear true
Faith
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
And that I will take this obligation freely
And I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
That I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to.
the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Supervisor. We are delighted to have you. So, yep, we will, are you, Nelly, please, thanks.
When I say the jurisdiction, if you'll please state your name. San Mateo County. Lisa.
I'm sorry. I'm not paying attention. I'm already a bad student.
Just say your name.
Lisa. See, yeah, okay, so Lisa Gaucher.
Okay, thank you so much. Atherton. Thank you. Belmont. Brisbane.
Pauline,
Burlingame. Homa. Daly City. East Palo Alto. Foster City.
Stacy Jimenez.
Half Moon Bay. Hillsborough.
Leslie Ragsdale.
Los Banos. Menlo Park.
Betsy Nash.
Millbrae. Pacifica. Portola Valley.
Greg Taylor.
Redwood City. San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
San Carlos. San Mateo.
Adam Range.
San Francisco. Woodside. And we have a forum.
Great, thank you. All right. We don't have any participation under 2449, I don't believe. Okay, great. So the first thing we'll do is public comment. If there's any public comment anyone would like to make for any item not on our agenda, now is the time. So Nellie, did we receive any public comment?
Not receive any written public comment, and I'm checking virtually. We do not have any members of the public comments.
Okay, is there anyone in the room that would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close public comment. I would like to see if I can get an action to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items. There are 3 items. Does anyone need to pull anything off the consent agenda? Any members of the public want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Motion by Director DeGolia,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Medina. Because we have everyone in the room, we can do a voice vote, or we don't have to do roll call, right? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Regular agenda, chair report, me, there's really not much, I don't really have much to report. There wasn't, we're gonna begin working on our CAC appointments over the next bit here. The one other thing I do have to report, which, is gonna be a very sad loss, but Colleen, Director Mackin has been appointed to the CCAG committee, which meets on the same evening as the, CAC. So, is there any, I would like, you don't have to volunteer right now, but if anyone else, I'm taking a few meetings. If anyone else would like to offer to take a couple of those meetings, you can do them on Zoom. You can participate by Zoom, you just pop in, you kind of sit on your Zoom and listen. We're just there to answer questions or help out. We don't have to attend every single meeting, but it is nice if a board member liaison is there.
I can just say I went to the last one and I'm going to March and it was fantastic. Also so relaxing. I just sat there and listened. But they are amazing, the expertise and the individual perspectives, and I highly recommend.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to volunteer right now, you can raise your hand. If not, if you can, who raised their hand down there? I saw
Christine
it.
for visiting.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah.
Yay, one of our new
Me
people,
too.
thank you. So we have Leslie, Donna, Christine, and anyone else who just, even during the year, if you just think you might want to join into a meeting, Adam, thank you, just let Nellie know, or who coordinates, is it Christian?
Yeah,
Or you-
but you can let me know.
Okay. Let Nellie know, the meetings are all in everybody's calendars, and, 2 people, 1 to 2 people at each meeting is really, really helpful. And then, you don't have to give a report out or anything on it, it's just really there to, help facilitate conversations. So thanks. So that's it for me. I'll turn it over to, we will take public comment if it's okay. Can I take chair and CEO public comment together?
Yes.
Okay, and maybe even CAC report, work those 3 together. Okay, so CEO.
Okay. First of all, good evening, everyone. Welcome Supervisor Cote. Welcome, Councilwoman Bolt. Welcome, Councilmember Taylor. Welcome, Councilwoman. Are you the mayor? Mayor, excuse me, Mayor Jimenez? Very good. All right, we will get to know you all very well. Do want to just say welcome and update the board on 7 out of the 8 new board members who will be joining us have been identified, which is fantastic. Many of you are here tonight. We're still waiting on Woodside. Hope to know about that one in the next couple of weeks. And give you all a heads up that we have a fairly robust new board and alternate orientation plan, which will involve one-on-one briefings. One-on-one briefings with you and our senior executive team to just run through operations, our budget, essentially how things work. We have a board orientation session scheduled for February 27th prior to the board meeting. That meeting is available to any board member that would like to come. And there's always good new, bits of information to learn from and alternates. And then we will have a board mentor and buddies program. We'll reach out to you individually. We're working on pairing you up with an existing board member. So if you have questions about anything or just how things work, you've got someone who's available to answer your questions and help out. We have committee openings due to some former members that have gone off our board. We will have 3 openings for executive committee. We will have 1 opening for audit and finance. If you are interested in serving, please let our chairwoman know. And I believe, is it next month that you'll?
Yes.
You'll-
The vice chair and I will get together and take a look at the list of everyone who's applied. We try to make sure that the committee is representative of, geographic diversity and all kinds of things to make sure people's skill sets are all a little different. And it's been a wonderful working committee. Both are excellent. Often if you're just getting your sort of feet wet in it, Director Romero has chaired the finance committee for the last few years, and it's a great way to sort of get to start when you know the nuts and bolts of how the budgets work and the funding for everything works. helps to lay the groundwork to then jump on the executive committees. That's been a little bit of a pipeline, just so people know.
Great, thank you so much. And just the last little asterisk there for new board members, especially those that are now no longer alternates, but primary. If you could please let Nellie know who the new alternates will be to serve your city and your county, okay? That'd be great. I should also say, this is reminding me that hopefully you got the notice yesterday that our new website is live. And so all of your names are on the website. That's already happened. And I do want to just call out our Director of Marketing Communications, Gwen Rose, her amazing team who worked on that. There's more to come in terms of next round iteration, but it's a great way to kick off the year. Okay, I also want to I had to pick 5 top 24 highlights. I didn't get a chance to do this in December. So we had literally 2 pages, single spaced, of accomplishment from last year, and I had to pick 5. So here they are. The first is existing board members will remember that we made a shift in the way we set rates to what we call a hybrid cost of service rate setting, which really looks more closely at our revenue requirements, what is needed to run our agency, and making sure that our budget is accurate so that we can then hopefully deepen discounts for our customers. Won't always, can't guarantee that, but the idea here is to set rates based on our budget, based on what we need. In 2024, our customer savings were nearly double 2023. I think this is a metric worth celebrating because we've been so focused on affordability and doing, really balancing affordability concerns with continuing to meet our goals. By the end of 2024, we will have this data. I think you said March, Leslie, but it's looking like it'll come in right about $48 million saved in calendar year 2024 for our customers. And that does include the $300 rebate that we did for low-income customers. We launched our new turnkey home upgrade service. We soft launched that in the fall and took care of the waiting list that we had of homeowners that will now be receiving home upgrade services. And in tandem with that, in December, we launched our very own in-house customer service center. Before that had been a service that was contracted out, had some quality control issues, and we feel like we can really serve our customers from a 360-degree perspective now with our own folks. So that has been going exceedingly well for the last month. We brought on 45 gigawatt hours of new load. I can't promise that'll happen every year, but last year, I do have to give a tip of the hat to Justin Pine, who's our Director of Strategic Accounts, Caltrain, San Mateo Community College District, Google, and others came on board. They had been previous direct access customers. And Justin and the team went out and met with them multiple times, and we brought them across the goal line to now be in our service. So that was a phenomenal win last year. We also did our first prepay bond transaction, yielding $6 million annually in power cost savings. I believe that yield begins on February 1. We will begin seeing those savings. We may do another one this year. Don't know yet what the market will bear. We also started an innovation and strategy function. It is not a formal department of our agency yet, but I think we will be hearing more about it. This is led by Yana Landi, who's here tonight. And so we brought her on board from MCE Clean Energy, MCE, to work with us, really to focus on revenue diversification to support our program so that we could not just use ratepayer funding, but use available state funding. We brought her on to help with strategic planning, with pilots, all kinds of stuff. She's been here since March, is working with all kinds of departments, and already from our self-generation incentive program, we will be awarded between 7 and 9.2 in March to install solar plus battery projects in lower income for low income customers. That's Those customers, 300 to 400 of them have already been identified. So we are ready in the pipeline to serve those customers with money from the state, not from our ratepayers. Under the Equitable Decarb program, PCE was awarded as a subcontractor, 16 million for additional home incentive upgrades, which all is just feeding our effort to scale this program. So that would serve an additional 7 customers through 2030. And finally, we commenced our 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. So only 5. I'm so sorry to all the others I missed. We would be here for a long time. So now I want to draw your attention briefly to a handout that you got, because it's just a whole lot of text. In front of you is double-sided. These are the 7 2025 agency goals. This is just brought to you for your awareness. We met today with our senior staff team and flushed out all of the department goals that support these 7 goals. So we're not going to go through all of that in detail, but just very quickly, the first one is not going to be any news to existing board members or longtime board members. We will continue to offer 100% carbon-free products across both Eco Plus and Eco 100. Those are carbon-free for all of our customers, and make steady progress toward our 100% annual renewable goal, which is established a target of 2030 to reach that goal, while balancing the need for continued customer affordability and sound financial management. So this year and over the next 5 years, we are targeting a minimum 60% renewable portfolio standard, or RPS, across all of our sales, which is up from anywhere between 48 to 51% where we've been hovering the last several years. We're also targeting between a 5 and 10% rate discount within this goal. Next is to engage and educate board members and alternates. So essentially executing on the orientation strategy that I laid out. We have a fantastic board. We have a board that is highly aligned to our mission, works well with staff, high degree of trust, and we want to continue that. So that is primarily my job, but also all the team that serves you. We will continue to put our customers first. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff in this bucket. Implementing and scaling our programs. This is really the second largest thing that we do in our agency after power procurement. Power procurement takes up 90% of our budget. So that really is the big kahuna. The rest is programs and then some G&A. So it will be measured by increased GHG reduction, growth in program participation, customer satisfaction and retention, use of new online tools that we'll be seeing rolled out, and positive feedback from customer surveys. The next is to close out our existing strategic plan, which we are targeting for August, and then to adopt the whole entire new strategic plan for 26 to 2030 in September. So we'll be talking more about that later tonight. Just a couple more. 5 is packages together 2 things: state, national, and federal policy leadership and subject matter expertise. And so we've identified a couple of key topics there where we have developed leadership and innovation, and we will get out there and share that. We are also going to be advocating for PCE and CCE generally at the federal level, just kind of honestly playing block and tackle as much as we can in terms of what's going on already this week. Next is further developing the strategy and innovation function that I just covered here, and bringing that into its own department and continuing to build that out to lead our new lines of business and DER programs. And then finally, adopting standards of excellence, continuous improvement. This is a catch-all one. I didn't include all of the subtext here, but it's on the back of your sheet. It includes things like people, culture, marketing, data, regulatory and compliance. Finance, thank you. And then finally, selecting PTE's workplace of choice. Our lease here ends in September of 2026. We're now working with a brokerage firm to look at what's available to us. We will either stay here or we will move to a new space with potentially a new configuration. That's TBD. So those are our kind of big ticket items for 2025. Are there any questions about that?
Anyone have any question on any of the presentation? Okay, if
So we
not,
got more.
well, I have, I have just two quick comments.
Oh, yes, please.
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
Can we, I don't remember when that program was implemented with all the, not on our agency goals, but which were the, programs targeting our lower income communities.
Yes.
Can we get data on those to see where like all those 700, where then households that were impacted by those programs, not names or anything, but just like it could be.
General mapping.
Yeah, general mapping, just to see, it would be nice to see, are they on the coast? Are they in North County, South County? Are we, hopefully our
Los
programs
Banos.
are, Los Banos, our programs are impacting a diverse set of our community and not all concentrated in one particular area.
Yeah.
That
Yana?
would be great.
Are you in the room? Okay. Is that gonna be possible?
For our existing program, yes, if you're talking about the equitable building decom funding, that's gonna be work that's happening between 2026.
When it's done, when it's
When
done,
it's done.
or along the way. Yeah, long term. I just
Super.
think it's always helpful to know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then, I also would suggest, you can either, I don't know if this is on the agenda, but if you could send out the goals and priorities to everyone just in an email, I think it's really helpful to share these out with your colleagues on your council. I know most councils or the supervisors have like a little area where you can do board reports or member reports. I think what I do is I don't go over all this. I just send it out in the board packet, in the council packet, so people can read it and know, and then if they have questions, they can ask. What I am finding is that I know a lot about what's going on at PCE, probably my alternate knows a little bit about it, and the other three people don't. So as a part of our sort of marketing and getting the data out, having all of us be facile and conversant in the goals and what we're working on, even the people not serving on this board, I think are really helpful. And Sean, you do your annual review and update, which is always great, but I think this would be a nice like way to, you put a little bow on that.
Sure. We're gonna make it look nicer before we send it out.
Yeah.
I also should say that this list is largely based on the goals that were established for me with the chair and vice chair and the board subcommittee in July. So these weren't sort of just made up in December. They're reflective of those goals and then updated a bit just to reflect new reality. So,
Yes, Director Mackin.
I was just, I know we've made a lot of requests upon call center for feedback, but one thing comes to mind. If there was a way that each of us, the jurisdiction that we represent, if we had some way of knowing how many calls from our city, if the call center asks them, what type of calls, because we do regular reporting at council meetings, but it'll give us an idea of how far we're bringing along the community and what kind of topics they're mostly interested in.
we're definitely tracking the topic issue. I don't know that we've been tracking the jurisdictional issue, so is that possible, Leslie?
Yeah, if someone brings up a specific jurisdictional issue, like we can definitely capture that, but 99% of the specifically about the bill. But if we have occasionally gotten things escalated back up to us that have been jurisdictional, we'll be able to track those closer now. But it's not common. People don't normally think to call us if they've got an issue in their city.
Yeah, but I think what Director Mackin, let me see if I can translate. I think what she's asking for is for us to track where the calls are coming from regardless of topic. So we know
Yeah,
that
we
3
can-
calls came in from
Yeah,
Brisbane.
we can do,
Okay,
yeah,
super,
that's, yeah.
right, and
We
we
know,
will,
who's calling us, we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry
All right.
to interrupt.
okay, anything else on agency goals?
Yes, Director Bowles. Did you have one? Did you have
Oh,
one?
no, I'm sorry,
Okay.
waving to the person who.
Oh, oh.
Right. I think next up is Raphael. If I can ask you very briefly just to provide your quick web PV update.
As many of you are aware, we have the first round of solar systems that have been installed, 12 sites. We have 5 of the 12 that are operational. we are still working through final permitting and interconnection processes with the remaining systems. All construction is complete. Candidly, as some of you may already be aware, PG&E is not fast with regards to interconnections. The most recent piece of news, which may be of interest, I don't see Director Medina here. Oh, right here, sorry. The aquatic center inspection was completed and we were told that it passed inspection, and that could mean that the system should get permission to operate any day now.
It's on.
Oh, it's on, all right.
Oh, yay.
Well, that's fabulous, and we continue to push PG&E on the remaining systems and items to execute. Anything else, Peter, that I should mention? The first 12 sites. And then we're moving forward with the other 24 sites. And so we have PPAs signed on almost all of them and are now working through final designs and getting into permitting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you, because it is a very frustrating process to go through as your building's done and you're waiting for PG&E to come by. And in fact, what I found out was they didn't say they're coming by, they showed up and they were like, we're here to inspect. Yes, this is what I
No
heard.
appointment.
No appointment, although staff has been trying to get them to set up appointments and it was, you know, the good news that for us, it finally worked out, but it's looking at that list, it's a serious problem. PG&E is just PG&E, not fast. And that very slow.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
Director Taylor.
thank you.
And I just want to follow up. I mean, is there any place that we can push through the CPUC or anything to make this a priority for PG&E?
I mean, you,
Our legislative people have been pushing. I
Okay.
met with Patty Cozy myself along with the mayor, Rico Medina of San Bruno. I mean, we are pushing in every way we can.
we're small potatoes.
Well,
It's
I understand, but I mean, and we also see it in just in terms of like panel upgrades and
Yeah.
stuff. It's like 9 months out. And so everything's getting delayed. People's projects are getting
Yeah.
delayed. So exactly. Right.
Fortunately, we're not special.
And
It's frustrating.
I hope we just keep pushing on them, even if it's only a little push.
We're pushing.
We're gonna put Marty out.
well, we have a big champion.
I mean, Director Medina.
And
That's
Yeah.
true.
Just done a good job.
So, we need to know.
Speaking of Senator Becker, Mark, I'm gonna cover this really quick. You know that our very own senator is now the chair of Senate Committee on Energy, Utilities and Communications. At this time, we are not aware of any bills that he may be sponsoring this year, but that could change. Assemblywoman Diane Pappin is on the Assembly Committee on Utilities and Energy. And Representative Kevin Mullen at the federal level is a member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce. So it's the stars are aligning. And we're really hoping that Rep Mullen can, help get some things done in Washington. The January calendar is almost done, but what you will see is tomorrow is the deadline for bills to be submitted to Legislative Council. So at this time, PCE is not planning to submit anything tomorrow, but again, we'll see how things unfold and what we end up supporting. Is there anything, Mark, that I missed?
Nothing urgent. I did see this evening, the governor, his legislature passed, the governor did sign $2.5 billion. Whatever they did for that one. State federal forces, that's there this time. But as noted, the governor flag was just getting about 2 weeks ago and for a big new funding of the general. So it's secure.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, on the federal level, Already, there's been a lot of activity. So President Trump declared through executive order, all of this happening, I believe, on Monday and Tuesday, a national energy emergency to address perceived inadequacies in US energy production. What that means in sort of real time is that through that, he was able to rescind several Biden energy directives, including a reversal of an indefinite halt on offshore oil drilling. So that got removed. He also went after the wind industry fairly directly, halted permitting and leasing for both new onshore and offshore wind projects on BLM land. I'm going to stop here and say this affects PCE in two ways. One is that the Lava Ridge project based in Idaho is something that we have been watching and was potentially going to be involved in through CC Power. Wind, as you know, is a resource that we are actively looking for to diversify and build out our portfolio. It's very likely that Lava Ridge will not move forward. So that was something that we were working on with CC Power. And then a second project through CC Power is the Catamo project, which is an offshore wind project near Morro Bay. That is in state waters. So it should be shielded from this, this federal action, but we are worried that there may be some other mitigating factors that somehow it gets also swept aside. So we're watching that one. We'll keep you posted. The third is that there's a freeze on unspent Inflation Reduction Act funding, IRA funding. We knew this was likely coming. Not a big surprise. Have no idea what will actually happen to those monies that have been committed, but but as yet unspent. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of clawback. For us, we didn't have any direct IRA money in any of our programs or projects. It just reduces the overall pot and the overall incentive to advance clean energy. Fourth, the decision on tariffs and investment tax credit is forthcoming. There's a proposed 25% tariff for Canada and Mexico and 60% for China. I believe Roy indicated that those were going to likely come out in February. So we should know more about that. These tariffs are potentially expensive for us because it opens the door to having to renegotiate pricing and potentially put some tariff risk provisions in our contracts. If the ITC goes away, that's potentially a 30% increase in some of our pricing. So these things have, in some cases, immediate and direct impact on the cost of doing business. So that's the federal update. Any questions on that?
Is there anything positive?
I couldn't come up with anything this week.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
fair enough. Just like,
Leslie's going to give us a quick update on a new PG&E budget billing campaign that is.
Yeah, this is really kind of an informational item. You may have received an email from PG&E this past week. Some of your constituents may have received an email inviting them to join the budget billing program. There's an active campaign that just started last week. PG&E is reaching out to 1.6 million customers to encourage them to enroll in budget billing, which is a levelized program, energy charges program. So the intent is to try to levelize the costs and sort of stave off against seasonal swings. Doesn't really impact most of San Mateo County, to be honest, because our climate here is pretty mild, and so we don't have like these big wide swings that they do in the Central Valley with really high air conditioning loads. It is potentially more of a interest to some of our customers in Los Banos. The caveat here is that budget billing only applies to, like, the levelizing of the charges only applies to PG&E's charges on PG&E's bill. So our charges are still whatever they are on a monthly basis. We are working with Calpine. They are going to be enabling this capability to mirror the budget billing process for their clients if we want to explore it. implement it, it would be likely a, May or June timeframe when they could turn it on for us if we want to move forward with it. So we're gonna take some time this next month and analyze what that would look like. We do have some customers currently enrolled. There's about 7,000 in our service territory right now that are our customers that are also on budget billing. So, but PG&E has an enrollment goal of enrolling at least 200,000 new customers this year in that program. Frankly, their senior leadership is looking at it as a way to help combat the conversation or criticism around affordability. So that's what they're using. They're pushing forth this program that they've had really in the background for a lot of years as a way to say, oh, here's how we can help you keep your bills more affordable.
Thank you, Leslie.
Anything else? Okay. We're doing this, well, if it makes sense for us to do it, and that's what we're analyzing, we will do this to mitigate opt-outs. Because we are worried that because PCE is not included in the budget billing, customers will still see some movement from month to month, and we would like to be able to match what PG&E is doing to mitigate people leaving our service. So that's the why. Okay, almost done here. Sorry, these are not usually this long for new board members. My CEO reports are not usually this long. There is a lot of good news, Director Taylor, that we recently had a credit rating increase at the end of last year. And savings are already being realized. This is just one small little example, but we had posted cash collateral to Calpine Energy Services for the provision of our billing and data management in the amount of 2.14 million. With our credit rating, it's no longer needed. So they return that money to us. We can then turn around and invest it at a rate of 4%, which yields about $85,000 in additional income per year. That's one example. We also anticipate hopefully having more favorable credit conditions for Power Resources.
So just to clarify, this is Calpine from Power Resources, not.
Oh, it's not the back office. Oh, very
It's
good. Calpine Corp, thank you, thank you. All right, this is a list of all the activities. This list gets a whole lot longer come March and April in terms of all of our tabling and events, education events in the community. We will be welcoming a senior manager of legislation, Michael Milkey, starting next week. A power resources specialist, Lauren Deneen, starting in February. What's kind of fun about this one is that she was one of our interns in our first year of internships. And now did so well for us, graduated college, and now we're excited to bring her on. So it works. All right, here's our February meetings, and that is all I have.
Great. All right, since that was very long, I'm gonna go ahead and take public comment right now if anyone has any questions. Anything, Nellie? Nothing? Okay, any members of the public behind me?
Yeah, questions?
If you have a question on this, on the CEO's report.
Sure.
Comment.
Good evening, board directors and chairwoman, Olson, chairperson, chairman, co-chair, Mr. Medina. Under that SCHIP program, you said you were gonna get about almost 9 million from the state.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
7 and 9.
Is that coming from PG&E or from the actual state budget?
It's money from the state budget that was allocated to the Dalton Incentive Program, that's the first via PG&E.
Okay, so that's the one that doesn't require prevailing wage, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone? Seeing none, go ahead and close public comment and we'll move on to item number 6. We have Jason Mendelson with us, the chair of our CAC. To provide a report.
Good evening. Thank you, Honorable Peninsula Clean Energy Chair, board members, staff members, and members of the community. And Happy New Year. Welcome to the new members. I look forward to meeting you. I'm delighted to share with you what occurred at our community Advisory Committee meeting on January 9th, 2025. I want to particularly thank Councilmember Ragsdale for coming and attending and helping us out with that meeting. It's always great to see you guys there remotely or in person. The primary focus of our meeting, as I'm sure it'll be for you tonight, was the strategic plan draft. And members of this great staff, along with Lester Olmsted Rose, delivered a comprehensive report on the plan. Probably one of the best presentations we've ever had. It was great. After answering all of our questions and a thorough discussion, the CAC unanimously adopted the following recommendation for you guys. I don't know if you have it up there, I can read it in, but it was, the CAC supports the draft strategy roadmap and recommends the following. The Peninsula Clean Energy continues to distinguish itself by elevating greenhouse gas reductions as the highest value or priority in the strategy, and to clarify the definition of distributed energy resources such that fossil fuel-based resources do not qualify. The CAC next congratulated and thanked Desiree Thayer for her amazing service to CAC and the PCE since before its inception and through today, including as chair, with the resolution of which I'll skip most of the recitals, but now she's with you guys as she's been elected to Burlingame Council, so we're excited for her. The key part of our resolution was that Desiree Thayer served as an active member of the CAC since 2017, assuming leadership roles as the CAC chair and lead of several working groups during her tenure. Desiree lent her expertise to strengthen Peninsula Clean Energy and further the agency's mission across several areas. Most recently, she led working groups related to strategic plan, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and education initiatives. Desiree also raised awareness and support for clean energy by developing youth education programs and community outreach initiatives. So we thanked her for that in our resolution. Next, the CAC received reports on marketing and community liaison activities from Kirsten Andrews Schwinn, Associate Director of Community Relations and Climate Equity, that included information on recruiting CAC members, and that the PC, this is now out of date since I wrote this 2 days ago, but that the PCE website will be launched soon since it has been launched and it's wonderful. I want to point out, because I'm on one of those working groups, that we were able with Gwen to look at it, help review it over the last many months, and it was incredibly valuable to us, so we can get ahead of that with our rest of the community and hopefully provide some useful feedback. Also, CAC member Robert Whitehair reported on the continued and successful electrical home tours that he's one of the champions of and provides his home for, and how great these are to share information with the community with hands-on interactive presentations in our neighbors' homes to see how they can electrify and how much fun it can be. We also received reports from our working groups, which include the Building Electrification Working Group, the Marketing Strategy Working Group, and Strategic Planning Working Group, and the Transportation Electrification Working Group. So we were busy at work, and that led to one of our final things we talked about, which was our update on the previous board meeting and CAC recommendations with a tracker of the various status of those items. I was stunned at how many recommendations we've made, both the ones you've asked us to make and the ones you've not asked us to make that we've provided. There was a comprehensive list of things, and it's being worked on right now, and it's great. We got to hear back from all of our recommendations, where they are in the process. One of particular interest to us that the CAC did last year was getting the information out to the public about the greenhouse gas calculations for the next rounds of REACH code engagement. This is to determine the actual reductions and co-benefits, and we eagerly await that data, and we know it's in the works. I hope that was somehow useful to you. Again, I want to thank you guys for always being there and listening to us when you want to or when you can, and hopefully we're of some use to you at some of the time, but all of the members are very appreciative of what PCE does, especially in the challenging times ahead, as we heard about earlier. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And please show up whenever you want. We're going to try and streamline the meetings and not make them last as long as your meetings. We'll see if we can.
So we don't, or any of our other committees. If we get a majority of a small committee that attends one of their meetings, then we have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Jason? Tremendously. Okay, anyone in the public have questions or comments for the chair? Okay, thank you very much, Chair, for coming tonight and making a live presentation. We will, okay, number 7, approval of a phase 1 strategic policy and plan. I believe Shalini could not make it this evening, so she had a sick child. So we have with us Lester Rose Olmsted from La Piana, who is going to, where is he up there? Okay, there you go. Is going to go ahead and walk us through the phase 1 of our strategic policy work.
Thank you. It's great to be back here again. I've met with the board before and the ad hoc committee, so I feel like I know many of you, and I'm sorry it's me and not Shalini. One of the nice things in a process like this is staff and board members taking over and the ownership of this. This is not something I am deciding. This is what you all decide. So I'm sorry Shalini isn't able tonight to do this presentation. I think I'll skip the agenda. What I'm going to do though is to just walk through pretty quickly the process, some process recaps, what's in the strategy roadmap that you all would have received. And then there will be time for some questions and conversation. And then there is a resolution in your packet, which I will turn it back to the chair for that conversation. So the concept, the way that we work is to really begin with a strategy pyramid and really look at the top of it, thinking about decisions you make that drive overall direction of the organization. And that's how we thought about this. Once you do that, then you can really dig into your programmatic and operational strategies. How do you implement these things? I was speaking with a council member or a director tonight before the meeting. This is not actually the end of the process tonight. This is a major milestone where what we will be asking the board to approve are 3 policies that provide a good amount of guidance and direction to staff. There is a lot of work left to do that will involve the board to some extent, but is largely going to be staff driven. That is focused on how do you implement those policies and other needs for the organization. So we're focused kind of at the top of this pyramid, providing some direction. That is the board's job. And then we'll be moving on from there. So next slide, please. And this is just to recap, there has been a lot of stakeholder input. All of those beautiful little graphics up there, really what they say is at the beginning of the process, during ideation, I always hate using that word because I sound like a consultant. During the ideation phase, there were meetings with the board, with staff, especially with staff, honestly, and with a lot of stakeholder groups, community groups, including the CAC and the unions actually, who are also here. And then kind of formulated ideas, and then we went back again with proposals of what some of these 3 policies might look like, talking with staff and some community with the CAC and with the board ad hoc committee. So that's brought us to here. So there's been a lot of feedback in this. You got a huge amount of information in your packet tonight. The actual strategy roadmap is as succinct as we could make it, but it's not too terrible to read. But then there is a long report that really encapsulates a lot of this community this broad feedback. Honestly, I think there's a lot of really interesting insight from all that feedback. So if you want to sit down and read, some of you probably already have, there's a lot of interesting reading in what people had to say about some of the questions. Next slide, please. Oh, I did it. I'm in control now. So we talked about this a little bit. This is still being fine-tuned how we're going to do this, but we're calling where we are tonight the close of phase 1. We will then move on to phase 2 and 3. Again, I think of that as a lot of how do you implement, but be really clear about what your goals are. So actionable, measurable goals and milestones. What kind of a timeline are you going to move them forward? And that's what still is coming with a target of late summer, early fall, really, for completion. The deliverables will begin with what you're looking at tonight. The structure is still to be determined a little bit, but it includes those goals and milestones. And it should align, we will work hard to do this, to align to the staff's internal planning processes and individual staff members' goals and activity, departments and staff members. So we're doing our best to get that all aligned. So this process, for those of you who have been here through all of this, you will remember in the very beginning, we had conversations about what are the critical questions that PCE needs to resolve that will really give you direction. And things that are a little bit tough to push through, but again, if they're resolved, they'll give you directions. The whole process was built around these 3 questions. And they boil down to, you can read them for yourself, but I think of them as what are your procurement priorities? And really it's a word of balance. How do you balance affordability with reducing greenhouse gases? So there's a balance there. There's a question about your programs and thinking about how a similar kind of balance question, how do you deliver programs that reduce greenhouse gas reduction, which is what the programs are really set up to do, but also how do you make sure that you are reaching equity customers so that they're not left out of the benefits. And then the third area is just saying, you know, what's going on out there? Are there areas of work that we really need to do more of? We need to enhance what we're doing, or we need to start doing something new? Are there things we should lean into in order to really better support decarbonization and electrification in California? So this is the proposal. Again, it's in the roadmap, but this is the answer to those questions. So for the first question, and we're calling these strategic policies, it's really a fine tuning of the policy you have around procurement. And the proposed updated policy statement, and I will read this just so you can all think about it. I'm not going to read the details, but to maintain 100% zero carbon power resource portfolio while working towards delivering 100% renewable energy on an annual basis by 2030. And do that through strategic and cost-effective procurement of resources that maximize your 24/7 hourly matching of renewable energy and load. So that is very wonky language that we spent a lot of time parsing and trying to get it right. I'm just going to say, you know, we're going to keep looking at this language. This is good language. It really hits at what you want. And it speaks to 100% zero carbon power resource. And it also speaks to your desire to really get to that hourly matching of renewable as it reads now. So it's kind of pushing you to do as good as you can, but also as you read the details without losing sight of the need for affordability. So the second one, again, it's largely around the programs and balancing the need to reduce greenhouse gases with making sure that your programs deliver for equity customers. We needed to do some definitions on this one before we could really come up with a proposal proposal for you all to consider tonight. So first is the question of what are equity customers? What does that mean? Honestly, it's a horrible phrase and we couldn't come up with a better descriptor. So I apologize for that right off the bat. But what's important is thinking about like what groups of customers need additional supports to really be able to participate in your programs. And so we have 3 definitions here. One is low income customers, and there's a clear definition of that the state uses. So that one's kind of easy, and it's often where people first think when you think of equity. You think of low income customers. So that one's a relatively easy piece. The second one we had a lot of conversation about, but we are calling it for now customers with the greatest need for support. And so there are vulnerable customers. You can see the definition or the description here, which is kind of open-ended, meaning there's a little bit of a to be determined in this one. There are vulnerable customers who can benefit from your programs. And there's no real standard definition available to say exactly who they are. So these customers are going to be identified on a program by program basis. So for example, if you have a resilience program, you might say that vulnerable customers are folks who live in a coastal area with frequent outages. So it's a way of looking at the answer for this one for now, that'll be fine-tuned as we go forward, I think. As PCE goes forward, you know, in this case, resiliency, there are special needs, there are particularly vulnerable populations along the coast. So we're gonna think about how are we designing the program to make sure those customers benefit and are able to access the program. And then the third one is another standard definition, disadvantaged communities. That's a very standard definition. It's defined by a government process. It's well used, well understood, and it draws from the Cal EnviroScreen tool, and you can identify particular areas in your service area that are disadvantaged communities. So those are your equity customers, and the proposed policy. I'm gonna read I'm gonna read through the policy itself, and then there's all the bullets that give good description to it. But the policy itself is to continue to deliver programs and services that benefit a range of PCE customers and provide meaningful GHG reductions. So the focus is still on GHG reductions. PCE's policy is to reduce greenhouse gases as quickly as reasonably possible in order to mitigate future harms that disproportionately impact more vulnerable communities. So climate change disproportionately impacts vulnerable communities. So you're pushing on reduction of greenhouse gases for that mitigation. In addition, PCE will design its program and services with equity customer needs in mind. So the drive is to reduce greenhouse gases, but every program explicitly looks at the needs of equity customers and identifies how you're going to address those needs. And then there's bullet points to give you a whole bunch of examples of what that looks like or ways that that can be done. And then the third area, again, the question was, are there areas of work we should be leaning into that are gonna benefit, drive our mission forward, advance our mission? There was actually a lot of cohesion on this one, especially with the board when we came and asked for board input, but really with the community stakeholders as well. And it's to really lean into DERs, distributed energy resources. Again, I will read just the policy part. Over the next 5 years, PCE will prioritize efforts to accelerate the development of carbon-free distributed energy resources in order to support further innovation and market transformation of distributed energy technologies, accelerate greenhouse gas reductions, and provide customer and community resilience. And then there's things that fit together to do that. So the initiative, you know of pieces of what an initiative can look like. It includes things like more support for your customers that want to develop DER. So you can help with some project development. You can help your customers access capital. That doesn't necessarily mean you become a bank or a lender, but maybe working with third-party opportunities to help link customers, expanded consulting and technical assistance. So looking at where you can really work with, bring your expertise and to have expertise that you can bring to your customers, and also drive relevant policy development and advocacy. So there can easily be policy changes that and make it easier to do this kind of work or make it harder. So looking at the policy landscape and having a role there. We're almost there. So those are the three things that are policies that we'll be asking you to vote on tonight. There are a couple other things we've done in this process that we want the board to see and be aware of. They are going to continue to be they're going to be part of the continuing conversation, and they're actually very important. They keep coming up, actually. So the first is future value proposition. Historically, PCE's value proposition, kind of what it does better than anybody else, like PG&E, in the community, is that it's been your ability to deliver both cleaner, a word we're not really using, but greenhouse gas free, so cleaner and cheaper electricity. That's really been easy to say. In a changing sector that may not be as powerful over time for a variety of reasons. It may be a diminishing advantage for you. So the question is, what is our future value proposition? What really makes it compelling for customers to come to us? And so the proposal here is that PCE should extend its current value proposition. So really stay focused on cleaner and cheaper. That is good, and you should do everything you can to maintain that. But then to also deliver a future value proposition built around, and these 3 bullets, in my mind, they are all about being customer centric. So one is being recognized as a leader in the communities you serve, leveraging your mission-based purpose. And that, I just have to say, you are so powerfully mission-based and driven, and that you hear that and see that in palpable ways. So leverage your mission-based purpose that is not profit-driven, and that mandates a focus on dramatically reducing emissions, lowering electricity rates, and investing in the communities you serve. That investment in the communities you serve is critical. So you hear that, you're leveraging, you have a purpose for being here besides making money. The second thing is putting your customers first by listening to needs, acting as a trusted partner, and supporting customers' decisions and actions to address climate change. One of the most powerful things I heard in all the stakeholder meetings came, I don't remember who on the board, but in the last board session, there was this conversation about how your customer base, many people in your community, they want to work on climate change. They want to do something. And the easiest, best, most impactful thing they can do is to get their electricity with PCE. And so in that sense, you're a partner with your client, with your customers and with your communities to help them do what they want to do. It's impactful that way. And so this says that, to continue to be a partner with your community and your customers in that way. And the third thing is to lead innovation in the clean energy and electrification sectors and leading innovation in the clean energy and electrification sectors and innovate solutions that shape and scale the market and value for your customers. So you have been ahead of the curve in many different ways. This says continue to be ahead of the curve, push innovation, and it can be really powerful when you have opportunities to scale change, positive change, so it reverberates throughout the market. So that's future value proposition. We're not asking you to vote on that. We want you to see that and think about it. Again, it's very customer centric is really what it adds up to. And then I'm not going to go through all these criteria, but the other thing is having criteria that drive ongoing decisions. So the whole idea here is you can say this is where we want to be in 5 years, but you don't know who's going to be running the Congress in 2 years. You don't know if there could be some surprising change in the governorship in 2 years. Like so many things can shift. Prices, procurement is shifting almost on a daily basis, kind of the market and what it looks like. So you need flexibility. Even though you're looking to where you want to get in 5 years or even further, you need some guidance about how to make day-to-day decisions or make major decisions for new needs that come up. And so we created this list of decision-making criteria. The first pass really is largely around that future value proposition. So you would make decisions that preference or leverage your ability to build that future value proposition. So that's one, and there's 3 criteria related to that. You also have an equity policy that you have, your DEAI framework that you've adopted as an organization. So you want to make decisions looking at how well does it align with your DEAI framework and commitments. And then, of course, you need to make sure that your decisions take into account financial impacts to PCE and account for cost to your customers. So that's like a starting point to weigh opportunities, weigh decision, or weigh choices between, do we lean in here or lean in there? There's a second list of criteria here, which is kind of, once you do a first screen, you can kind of dig in, and some of these are going to be more relevant in planning. That doesn't make them less important. So I'll start at the bottom: meet compliance, policy, and political needs. Like, that is not an unimportant criteria by any means. But the important thing is to first say, this is what we want to do, and then say, now, does compliance allow us to do that? And if there are problems, then how can we mitigate that? So I'm a huge fan of organizations like this saying, this is the best thing to do to meet our mission. And then you look at the challenges and barriers, and you see if you can work them out or massage what you want to do in a way that meets with things like compliance. There was a lot of conversation about that criteria. You need to account for operational impacts, of course. Can we get the expertise? Do we have the expertise? How is it going to impact current load profiles? So there are questions like that you need to look at. And you want to look at just how any decision you make, how it aligns or challenges your current portfolio of services and activities. It doesn't mean you don't do new things, but how is it going to fit? Just make sure you're taking that into account. And then, does it align or support your organizational strategy, your big picture strategy? Okay, I've talked enough. So I think we want questions, or just questions. And I think we're really focused on the three policies. And I'm going to let you direct those questions to the chair and to the CEO, but I'll stand up here and go back and forth with the toggle if you need.
Thank you, Arthur. First of all, before we even start on this, I do want to call out and thank Vice Chair Medina, former Chair DeGolia, Director Lorraine, and Director Ragsdale, who were the 4 people who worked on the strategic planning in a small subcommittee. So this has been vetted, you know, part of the process is this was vetted, and a lot of this work was developed with that small subcommittee, the staff, and the CAC. Those have all had tremendous amount of input to get to this point. And what we really kind of need here, it's a pretty high level organizational document, would be any thoughts or feedback, but hopefully an adoption today, you know, in discussion, and then input of the actual first phase, and then questions or input into the future value propositions, right? That's not really an adoption, that's.
Yeah, we shared that with the value proposition tonight, just so you all know kind of what's on the radar.
Yeah.
I will say that these strategic priorities policies have taken a while to develop because there's been a lot of input. So that is all great. There's a lot more to go in phase 2. So this is really like phase 1. There may be additional strategic policies that come up through this next phase. We don't think so, but we're gonna leave the opportunity open for a little bit of iteration. The final product, which will be the whole enchilada, will come to this board in September. So this is the beginning of the process, sort of setting the stage for the rest that's to come.
Okay. With that, I'm gonna, first of all, what I'd like to do is just open it up to the directors for their questions or comments. And then open it up to the public for their concerns, questions, comments, and then we'll come back to the board and we'll allow anyone who wants to make sort of a final concluding remark or a change in comments based on anything from the public. Does that work for everyone? Okay, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to questions or comments. that includes, Director Rain or Ragsdale or anyone who, Director Folia who on here. Yes, Director Ragsdale.
I would just say I've been really impressed at watching the equity discussion and definition and grappling with the way we define that in this, the energy space. It's different, right? And I just really appreciate this, the detail and the openness that to the TBD as well.
Okay. Yes, Director Taylor.
So I guess for the strategic policy number 2, I'm finding it somewhat confusing. It sort of starts out as being meaningful reduction of GHG. But all the bullet points are about equity. And I kind of heard the CAC chair say that they'd like to see more greenhouse gas. So I think that's my question, is our strategic policy here, is it equity? And if it is, then maybe we should take out some of this GHG language and just focus on the equity. If it's the GHG, which personally I think it should be, then it feels more like the equity stuff ought to be sort of layered onto this one and actually 3 as well. So it feels awkward to me, especially as a 5-year strategic plan. I'm a little bit puzzled at how this particular one sort of plays out. And maybe it belongs as 2. I mean, maybe there's a GHG strategic policy and maybe there's an equity policy. Maybe that would make more sense. But as it is now, it feels muddled to me. So I appreciate the work that went into this. So please don't take it as criticism of the whole thing. It's just, these all seem like good things, but it seems muddled. And again, this is something we want to kind of live with for the next 5 years.
I'm going to turn this over to Pia.
I think that's a great comment. And what you see here is an evolution. So I can see your point, seeing it for the first time. Because where we started with this was really trying to kind of quantify, if you will, or prioritize in some way, whether our program should be focused on, a certain percentage of equity customers and serving, using more of our revenue to serve those customers. Then there was a robust discussion on, nope, we need to continue to stay focused on our mission, which is GHG reduction. And do we want to scale GHGs rather than serve equity customers? The truth is, it's not either or, it's really both. So I guess where I'm going with this is what you see here is this evolution. And I definitely see your point about the bullets below really focusing only on one piece of that, of the discussion. So maybe the recommendation would be to go back. What we would hope is that you are comfortable with what's here and that in the ensuing period through phase 2, we can go back and revisit this one and bring it back to you with some potential edits that balance it a little bit. Because potentially what's going on here is that it's not balanced.
Right.
In terms of how we would execute.
Yeah, so I mean, if this is an evolving thing, I think that's good. I think when I looked at it, I mean, one way I thought about it is the GHG, to reach those goals, we need to penetrate the underserved markets. So it makes total sense to me that we would do this stuff to get to those markets. But that seems like the way to approach this is we're doing it because we want to reduce GHG. And in that process, we want to get to these communities that are difficult to reach, and this is how we're going to reach them.
Yes.
Right? And this feels a little more like a social program. I mean, I don't mean quite that, but it's more like, well, we're going to do this for these people, we're going to do this for these people, rather than, no, we need to reduce this, and here's how we're going to make it possible. So, I mean, that's my hope. So as you guys sort of work through it, because generally, I'm with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So if I can,
Yes, please.
just very briefly. There is no doubt that sometimes with a lot of iteration, the language can get so nuanced that it is unclear. What you just stated is the intent of this language. It is intended to say our programs are to reduce greenhouse gases. We will not do that by leaving equity communities behind. And so therefore, we're going to really be intentional in these ways about making sure equity communities are included. And that's why you get that attention to the equity communities because it's so easy to not plan for them. But the formula is reduce greenhouse gases, that's the headline. Make sure equity communities are part of that. Yeah, and so the language, I can certainly see that language, there's a lot of words up there to say that.
That's certified.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, so I know that several people are commenting on this, but the intention here was not in this question, in fact, to describe our overall GHG reduction strategy, but rather there were certain key questions that needed to be answered with regards to how we would approach the element of equity within the programs. And so you're correct that still missing here, and in fact, we discussed earlier today this very question about the missing pieces around the strategic plan. So these are key policies that are guidance, but not the complete strategy.
If I could just add one last
Yes,
piece and then I'll
please.
also. I think if under this number 2, if you added a little bit more how we're focused on GHG and then put some of this stuff, I'd also put some equity stuff under number 3. I mean, it makes sense to me that there's potentially there. So again, that's where I'm a little confused about. I mean, obviously we want to support this community and we want to move forward on reducing GHG. But I also think you want to help people, like if there's distributed energy resources, we'd like to get that into low-income communities.
Right. And I think, and thank you very much. I think
Yeah,
those are really-
thank you.
Yeah, no, we very much appreciate that and help. Sean and I were just talking about this, that I think part of the other issue here is we're starting to build out these policies, and if you go back to policy 1 for a minute, check that back, Lester. Procurement, so this is, all about carbon-free reduction, whatever. I think maybe what's also tipping this whole thing a little bit is this strategic policy 1, 2, and 3. It feels like an order, an iteration. Sean and I were just talking about maybe we need to just, the nomenclature there needs to be more like strategic policy, no number, just on procurement, strategic policy on equity, strategic policy on blah, blah, blah. And then because I think the reason it's called out on under its own is because this board, in conjunction with the community feedback that we got and the CAC, were told over and over and over and over again that equity is a very top priority for the community. So the community is really driving a lot of this conversation, and we're trying to figure out how to transparently add that into the whole process. So I really appreciate the comments. I think these are really good, and you trust me, we've been over this a million times. Let us, I don't think it's a reason to not approve tonight. I think what we're trying to do is approve like step 1, and we're getting going, and then we can always go back and iterate onto this and try to figure out if there's a better way to add that language in. Maybe under equity, it's adding in DER. Yes, Director Romero and then Director Murray.
Yeah, I was gonna respectfully and polemically disagree with my colleague, because I really think that we have talked about embedding the concept of fairness in the work that we do. Certainly in the procurement policy area where some of you have not been present, we've had that discussion about, do we actually go deep into reducing our costs and making it more affordable, or making sure we can get to the 24-hour time coincident. And we've actually moved to, maybe we need to look at the GHG piece more on that side. But if we do not consciously embed this concept of fairness and equity, and when I think of our folks, low-income customers, we're talking about immigrants who culturally may not even understand this concept, right? And it's getting to them is a whole different issue. And then there are renters who are also kind of, let's say, they're maybe they have less financial autonomy. And so their interaction with their being able to control their costs is limited. I mean, I think these things are so critically important that it needs to be embedded in a strategic policy and not convoluted, but not diluted, right, with the GHG piece, which is super important, right? And I think all of us around this table understand that reducing our carbon impact, though. I remember David Pine talking about the fires 2 years ago and, or was it 3 years ago, whenever it was up north, how he said, the fires just impacted us by, I think, spewing into the air 75% of all our GHG reductions, right? So out of our hands, but I mean, nevertheless, I really think that the equity piece should stay as a strategic piece in and of itself. But agreed, let's make sure that the reduction on the GHG side, that part is very clear, but I would not like to dilute this more by adding more GHG wording. My opinion only.
Yes, Director
It
Lorraine,
blends.
and then Director.
So I was gonna try to contribute to this conversation by stepping back a bit and revisiting, I think, the question that we were trying to answer with this policy position. And I think because I think we all agree that equity is very important. Of course, we have a DEI policy, and the reasoning, I think, behind having the GHG language on top was because the question we were trying to answer was, how do we, there was a tension between reducing greenhouse gas emissions as efficiently as possible with our resources and having programs that, taking some of that money to serve specific equity customers, if you will. And how are we choosing to balance that approach going forward? We talked with during the retreat on the potential options. We could choose not to balance it, for example, maybe to your point, Director Romero, and go all 100% of our resources in one way or another, perhaps. But historically, we've had something of a balance and a split. And overall, I think we decided to continue that split. So, I guess so. This is trying to acknowledge that indeed we still have a split with perhaps to explain, why maybe despite having an equity policy, we haven't elected to direct all of our energy toward equity customers. I agree that perhaps some more work can be done to explain that differently. And I hope that was of some use.
Thank you. Moses. Director Machine.
Yeah, in the same vein, I can't find the exact language now, but at one point, there's a phrase that basically says, greenhouse gases disproportionately harm vulnerable communities. Greenhouse gases are bad for everybody. It's easier for wealthy people to renovate their houses and make a contribution to solving the problem, and it's harder for poorer people to do that. So if we kind of simplify the language and say, greenhouse gases are bad for everybody, they're not just bad for poorer people, but the poor people might need more help in solving their part of the problem.
We'll take the rest of Director Rice.
So I was gonna say one thing, but just also to Director McCune, and you do have more of the equity population probably living, closer to the highway where you're getting those, gas emissions and stuff too. So there's an environmental as well as not being able to, afford, I'm gonna put solar all over my house, but it's environmental also. And what I was gonna say, I can't ever do it as eloquently as Director Lorraine, but think of equity. It's kind of like you want to do everything at once, right? I have 4 kids. I want to pay attention to everyone all at once, or make dinner and do this all at the same time, right? Pet the dog and make the dinner. But you want to do equity along with everything. It's like the blanket you're wrapping the entire thing in, but you also have to say it and explain it So somewhere it needs to be there, and I think you're right, maybe not calling it number two. It's kind of number one, but I mean, as a blanket on top of everything.
And it could move, we had talked about moving this, like putting the other two, the procurement and then the, what is in this presentation, 1 and 3 up front, and then sort of wrapping it at the end with equity. Just so that we kind of deal with the fine points of business, and then at the end, it's sort of like you say, the wrap up. And we're gonna do greenhouse gas reduction of some programs, and all of this is gonna be done in a wrapper of. Yes, Director Nash.
So Director Ragsdale essentially said what I was going to say, just to emphasize that, yes, underserved communities are more vulnerable to climate change. They're along the coastal areas where there's going to be sea level rise. They're near roads where there's the air pollution, it's greater. There is a definite difference. It does affect everyone, but it's certainly climate change affects vulnerable communities typically first.
Yes, Director,
I just want to just say how refreshing to have this conversation after a federal avalanche of like anti-TAI and anti-environmental executive orders that came our way. And so I just want to say, it makes me feel renewed hopefulness that we're doing a lot of great stuff on the local that hopefully will affect the global. And I just want to say thank you for everyone that's contributed to the conversation, this equity focus and the layers of vetting. I'm also in conjunction with Carlos in terms of like, there has to be that focus of equity. And I really appreciate the equity framework, because we could have just had like a generic policy, but there is an intention that is thoughtful, and we have the different layers and components of every community. So I just want to say I'm appreciative of all that.
If no one else has an immediate question, we could open this up to the public, to hear from the public, and then we can circle back around for anyone who has comments or questions.
Kelly, was there anyone who provided any information or questions online? Okay, thank you. Are there anyone who, yes, please, a former director.
Not to be confused with the great Rick Dickel. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here and address this particular item because I think it's an important item. I agree with Director Romero that we do need to retain the equity focus, and it's because, I mean, to put it in very simple terms, I'm gonna keep this brief, but right now, everything is evolving, okay? The entire world, climate change is getting worse, economic situations are changing, governance is up in the air in ways we never would have imagined, I think, before, and we have an opportunity to try and reach some people here that we need to reach, because there are some people who live in parts of this county who think, maybe, I'm not sure, not having lived there and been in that situation, but might think that, well, that's a rich people problem. And so they don't know what to do. They think, I don't have the money to do this, and they don't bother even looking on the website to see what might be able to be done, because we speak in terms that are actually in the industry here. It's hard to discern and understand exactly what we're talking about here. So I say we do need to do this outreach. We need to have people that go and hit the ground in these communities and do the outreach in the places where the people congregate, and even door to door if we have to, because we have to make a difference. We're all breathing the same air. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Director. Yes, please, Director.
Can't stay away, and I'm honored to be here before y'all. To that question of we're all breathing the same air and GHG, well, not necessarily if you happen to be living directly next to the highway. There is an equity component to the GHG you're breathing. I think there was a hosted dinner in Menlo Park in an area that was particularly close to the highway and how they were renovating it. But there was this question as to how it is they're helping the community that has to be subjected to the fumes right next to them. I think it's important to maybe get some data in around if our Equity Quest customers are primarily renters or not. I know I've spoken a lot as a board member, as a renter, as somebody trying to solve the conundrum of I rent, therefore I have a landlord, therefore if I want to make any improvements to this house, it is not my house I'm making the improvements toward. And so I think I'm thinking in terms of a renter and what that means in terms of if I want improvements made to the house and what that looks like. And being privileged enough that I have a very good relationship with my landlord, that I can have that conversation and what it means when somebody can't have that conversation. After that, you know, I think that if you own a house, you have generational equity wealth. If you don't own a house, if you are a renter, there's this other question, well, if I can't make upgrades to the house because I will never have that relationship with the landlord because I will never have that tool set, what programs does PCE offer for me as a renter? Low-hanging fruit, can you help me buy an electric vehicle? Or for that matter, an electric bike, something like that. And so I think that however it shakes out, make sure we have the right data supporting, after 5 years on the board of a core agency and 4 years liaisoning with that board as a council member, renters tend to equal low income, especially in San Mateo County, where that generational wealth is not being accrued through equity wealth. And so focus there, know what the data is, and figure out how to pinpoint that in the mix of equity group. Thank you.
Right, if there are no members of the public who would like to comment, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comments and then we'll do a wrap up. I do want to try to get everybody out of here by 8:30 and we have one more big item, which is the rate setting with our amazing CFO. So just keep that in mind as we continue to wrap up here. Yes, Dr. McKee.
I'm just thinking about everything and not sticking to policy area 1, 2, or 3. To me, it seems really simple. What is our mission? Number one. Secondly, what is our focus in that mission? What are we focusing on now? What do we see as potential for the future? And the third part is, what is our commitment to how we do business? And that's where the equity comes in.
Okay. All right. Yes, please, Dr. Taylor.
So I just want to thank all the directors for their comments. I did want to be clear that I wasn't saying we shouldn't do equity. That was not the point I was trying to make. I was trying to make the point that strategic policy number 2 seemed confused. Like, I think if we're gonna, yeah, but if you sort of looked at it, it starts as GHG and then it goes into equity. Like, if we want equity, I think we should say equity. And so, Sean, you were asking, I think, maybe splitting it up. I mean, finding some way to sort of make it clear, because I mean, that was the point I was trying to make, is it felt muddled to me, and that was really the point. And, Director McCune's comments I thought were also good, which is, it affects all of us, but we need to make, as an organization, we need to make sure that we work on this through the equity policy as well and do that. Thank you.
Well, that gives us, I think, direction. Are you good with that?
Yes.
You, Bishop?
So what I'm assuming that it's included in the resolution, which is, somebody needs to call for that. Then we will go ahead and make those amendments unless the majority likes it the way it is.
I think everything's always subject to better improvement. So please,
All right.
your brilliant staff and make it, take all
We'll
this
clear that up.
conversation here and make it.
Do
the
our
best we
best.
can.
Okay.
We can always change it again. Like, it can come back, it can be changes, and nothing that is not covered. So with that, if there is somebody who would like to make a motion to accept the resolution in principle with the suggested, sort of
changes,
nuanced language, crafting that the staff will do. Thank you very much, Director Taylor. Second from Director McCune. Did you have something, Director? Oh, you good? I know you well enough to know when I see a question.
This is a big deal. This is the beginning for our new strategic plan. which is going to guide us over the next 5 years, once we adopt it. I don't think we should rush through it. I think it's important, and this is the first time it's come to the whole board. It's been in front of a subcommittee many times, and there's been a lot of discussion. I have absolutely no doubt that we can improve the language. So I guess, and what I was specifically going to say is in relation, first of all, I think the idea of not numbering these 1, 2, and 3 is exactly the right thing. And I thought we were going to flip what is currently 2 and 3.
We talked about that.
But to me, those are subtleties that we should fix. In this policy item that we're targeted on, which is equity, which is kind of interesting that that's what we're principally focused on, because there's other issues in the other 2 that are really significant. And that's not to say this isn't, but I just wanted to say what I'm proud of in this. And one is that it specifically identifies that it's our mission to reduce greenhouse gases for everyone. And that notwithstanding that, we recognize that disproportionately impacted communities are what we're calling equity communities. And we've had some good examples of that in terms of where people live, where people work, and what impacts our lives. And it's different depending on what community we come from. That doesn't mean, and that's important to recognize, right? That's really, really important, and I think we do it very clearly. But I think what we also are committed to making policy that benefits everyone as our customers. So we started off by saying prioritizing rate affordability for all customers. And I think that's really important, because I think that there's a lot of progressive language that gets out there that doesn't establish its root in benefiting everybody. And I think that in the area of increasing electrification and reducing the use of natural gas appliances, there's a big challenge that we've all faced, and we've seen it with solar also. There are early adopters who have more wealth than those that don't, who are going to take some action because they're willing to spend their money and see some benefit from that. But it's in a level of spending that everybody can't afford. And we want to address that as a public agency. And I think that that's the heart of this item, is trying to work that balance and recognize that we're doing something for all of our customers, and that we recognize within that base of all customers, there are certain customers who are disproportionately impacted. And I think it's important that we recognize that. I do think we could be clearer about that in the way that we frame it.
Yep.
So I guess what I would be most comfortable with is sort of approving this in principle and bringing back the specific language, because I think the board needs 2 or 3 times of going through this. It's a big policy. It's gonna direct us for 5 years.
Well, it's not the only one.
No, I.
Right, so there's a long way to go.
I'm not limiting myself to the equity policy. I mean, I think all 3 of them, and we need to spend as much time on the other 2 as we have on this one.
So let me, yeah, we do. So may I, based on your sort of input, Director DeGolia, might I sort of, it says vote on resolution always feels from a city council perspective, like you're voting some sort of a law into place or something, you know, and it's just gonna be rock solid. Can we vote tonight on the general direction of the first stage to make sure that we're all sort of on board at this point? We've given feedback, knowing that we'll be getting this back in iterations, probably every meeting between now and September.
Not every meeting, probably, but yes, we will.
Many meetings, periodically.
To be mindful, we don't have a motion in the
I
second
know,
on the floor.
that's what I was just saying. Would the makers of the motion be willing to
amend. Yeah,
Well,
so-
not even amended.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what we're talking, we're
yeah,
talking about
good.
amending the motion, in which, I'm comfortable, I think Director Stigall is a good point, so. I think the motion then would be that we're approving this in principle, and that we're gonna bring back some revised language based on this evening's discussion. Does that seem like, I'm trying to keep it fairly short, does that feel okay, Catherine? So I would be comfortable with that
Thank you
amendment.
very much. Thank you very much for everything. All right, given that, I would like to ask for a vote. All the people who are in favor, please say yes, or raise your hand. Anyone who is a no vote? Okay, motion carries unanimously, and I want to really thank the staff, and I want to thank the board for this really thoughtful conversation. And I think Director Goulet, you make a really good point, which is there's the DER conversation and a couple of other things in here that are really important. So when it comes back next time, maybe we could hear a little more of your thoughts on that. I think it would be important. Okay.
The equity piece here that we focused on, as Raphael mentioned, but I don't think it got through. This is really to give some direction to programs. And I think that's the right focus for us in terms of the program.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to item number 8, please. This is, I think, Justin and Nick.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's actually the Justin show, so I'm gonna first introduce Justin. Justin, some of you have met Justin. Justin's been with us for 6 months.
Do you need a clicker, Justin?
I do. Came from MCE, so another alumni from MCE, stolen from there. Justin is definitely one of the foremost experts on rates. He spoke on a panel at Cal CCA last spring. Some of you were there. He was 12 years at MCE. I believe 7 of those, basically Leslie's role heading up the customer function, and the most recent 5 years heading up their rate capabilities. So we are thrilled to have him here. He's going to walk you through, Justin's going to walk you through a presentation on rate setting, a little bit of education, especially, which I think will be especially helpful for some of the new board members. I will say, maybe it's a little unique that we're here talking to you about rates. We set rates back, as you may remember, back in June. It was based on a cost of service rate making approach. We set the budget, we used that budget to set rates theoretically for the next 12 months, which is great, but theory is just that theory. And in practicality, we've actually had a couple updates over the last month or so that has caused us to want to come and share with you what those updates are, and a recommendation to, just to jump to the punchline, to reduce our rates to take advantage of those updates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin. I'll interject here and there, but really Justin's going to lead you through the presentation.
Thank you for the fabulous introduction. We're here for one of my favorite kinds of rate presentations, a proposal to reduce rates. Just a little bit of background to get the elephant out of the room. We all hear about how incredibly expensive PG&E's bills are. This is a little bit of background on how PG&E's rates are structured and why they are so expensive. PG&E has some of the most expensive electric rates in the world. I used to like to say they were some of the most expensive in the nation, but I think a global scale is unfortunately where we're at this point. This chart here is one that I put together that shows the inflation adjusted PG&E rates. So inflation being in there mutes it still a little bit, but nevertheless, you can see that PG&E's rates are up about 50% over the last 15 years and over the period that CCAs have been doing business in California. Of those components, generation is up a bit, but the biggest one is the distribution component. Distribution has increased over $6 billion per year from ratepayers in the last 2 years alone, and that's an increase of about $35 a month per household. One other point I want to make here is this black line that I put in the middle, and that is the national average for the St. Louis Fed. So while most of the country has been flat on energy prices, PG&E's costs in particular have gone up precipitously.
So on those proportions of the bill, you wanna know that generation's only about 30% of the bill, generation being what we're providing in terms of the actual electricity. When CCAs were first launched, generation was over 50% of the bill. Why this is an issue is it gives us less ability to impact customers' bills and to save them money by having lower rates than PG&E. DC customers still pay for fees from PG&E, in particular the power charge indifference adjustment, which you've probably heard about, as well as non-generation costs. The non-generation costs are the ones that are truly significant. Non-generation includes transmission and distribution, or T&D, as you've probably heard it referred to, but it does include some other nominal fees, including cost of running lots of state energy efficiency programs. This is why we really focus on and care about what PG&E's rates are. This little cheat sheet, if you will, kind of shows how a PG&E rate change affects our customers. When PG&E changes their generation rates, our customers don't pay those. So of course, that does not impact our customer bills, but it certainly impacts our cost competitiveness. So it is something that we are concerned with. Changes to the PCIA fees both increase or decrease our customer bills, and they also impact our cost competitiveness, and that's why there will be so much focus on those usually. Finally, there's the non-generation costs. Those impact our customer bills. If PG&E's distribution costs go up, our customers have to pay more on their monthly bills, but they are competitively neutral. They're assessed to PCE and PG&E customer equally. Some background on our rates over the last year and a half, or the last year or so, excuse me. PCE has historically provided rates that were a 5% discount from PG&E's generation rates. That's competitively a very helpful message to have. It also meant that our revenues were very subject to whatever PG&E's rates might be at a given time. Made it a lot harder to forecast forward, and also meant that we had to change our rates whenever PG&E changed their rates. In March of last year, this board directed staff to set rates independently of PG&E and to take this new, more cost of service driven approach of setting an independent revenue requirement based on our budget, and then going about setting rates accordingly. In June, the board approved the current rates for the 12-month period that we're in the middle of right now. Based on that board approved budget, those rates went into effect in August. They are expected to stay in effect until the middle of this year. And those rates resulted in a 5% net discount from PG&E, from their rates, PG&E's rates at the time. And that included a small reduction from our rate stabilization fund in that budget. So this is where we're at today. There was a considerable amount of discussion and debate over PG&E's rates for January of this year, as well as a lot of filings and refilings of numbers. And after all that noise, we got to roughly where we were again in December. PG&E's rates have changed only nominally. PG&E's generation rates for its bundled customers are down less than 1/10 of 1 cent. The PCIA is down very slightly for our customers, and PG&E's non-generation charges are up about 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Oh, actually, I'm gonna go back to one more second. I like to look at basic residential rates. The reason I put them here is this makes it so I don't have to give you pages and pages of all the complex numbers that we look at. Basic residential rates come down to a single flat charge per kilowatt hour. What we actually look at is we serve 85 rate schedules right now within PG&E's collective rate schedules. That includes flat residential rates, time of use rates, electric vehicle rates, commercial electric vehicle charger rates, large C&I rates, and so forth. Within those 85 rate schedules, there are approximately 500 different components for things like peak and off-peak prices. We do keep track of all of those, and look at the revenue that we're projected to pull from them, as well as look at the cost competitiveness that we have on those individual components. PG&E typically makes small updates to these allocations as part of its annual rate change. Essentially, that determines which classes and which pieces it collects how much revenue from. There were, for the most part, the allocations remained the same going into this year, but there were a handful of rates where there were some larger allocation changes, primarily having to do with the cost of resource adequacy. And staff has identified those rates and does recommend updating those allocations as part of its recommendation tonight.
Sure, I'll jump in here. As I mentioned in the introduction, since the board set rates 6 months ago, there have been a couple changes. One was the rate change that PG&E made on January 1st. Justin mentioned that it was much ado about nothing, you could argue. When you net everything together, the discount went from 5% to 4.6%, not a huge change. There was the rate allocation issue or situation that Justin mentioned, where there are going to be some customers who could be paying a premium to PCE during certain times of the year. So that is one of our recommendations to change. The other update that we did is as part of our sort of mid-year budget refresh, we took the opportunity to see how are we doing compared to our budget. We set the budget last June. Budget is just that, an estimate. Actuals are always going to be different than forecasts. We had about 5 months of data at the time. We didn't have December, so this was through November. When we went through the exercise of updating our forecast, I know there are a lot of numbers on here, but I circled the main one. The change in net position, which is sort of the bottom line, you could say, we're about $35 million favorable to what we had budgeted. We had budgeted +5, we're coming in at about +40. The reason for that positive variance, which is great news, is basically a bunch of areas, but the two main drivers are cost of energy. Sean mentioned earlier that cost of energy is almost 90% of our budget. Those movements are gonna have a disproportionate effect on the budget. And you can see cost of energy, our estimate is down by about $45 million. This is due to a lot of the great work that Roy is doing on, procuring our energy as cost effectively as possible, improved market prices than what we maybe forecasted. The prepay transaction that Sean mentioned, those savings weren't in the budget. The Diablo Canyon allocation we got that came to this board. So all these things added together resulted in a lot of favorability. The other favorabilities in our programs budget, almost $10 million. A lot of those programs have been a little slower on the uptake than we had forecasted. We still expect to spend that money, but those dollars are being pushed into the next fiscal year. So the net of it is we're about $35 million to favorable to what we had originally forecasted, and that's one of the main reasons we're here to talk to you about what recommendation we have.
Thank you. So with that, I'll get to the recommendation that came out of the executive committee meeting.
Oh yeah, I should have said in the introduction, which you just reminded, we presented a version of this presentation to the executive committee about 2 weeks ago. Had a great, I thought a great healthy debate. We gave the executive committee a bunch of options, and out of that came these recommendations that you're seeing today. So these have been discussed, vetted at least by a small subset of the board.
Thank you very much. Under the current rate setting policies, the idea is that we are trying to not make too many rate changes and not make rate changes that are in the middle of the fiscal year unless they are warranted by significant changes or financial conditions. Given the forecasted financial favorability relative to the budget, as well as PC's focus on affordability, the recommendation is to immediately reduce PC's rates and increase the discount to approximately 10% less expensive than PG&E's generation rates. System-wide, that would be a decrease of about 0.7 cents per kilowatt hour. We believe this would be helpful for customers also in that it would offset most of the PG&E increase to transmission and distribution rates that occurred on January 1st. Specifically, in terms of customer impacts, the average household would save about $3 a month with this rate change. This would also give us a chance to reallocate rates and to address the rate allocation issues that were mentioned earlier in this discussion to ensure equitable savings to all customers. The impact to us financially would be a reduction in the net position forecast by 13 million. So as the current number is approximately 40 million, that would be dropping down to about 27 million. And it would also make sure that we maintain sufficient liquidity with 300 days cash on hand, which is sort of the gold standard used by credit rating agencies.
And just sorry to jump in, I know this came up at the executive committee, the $3 in typical savings, that may seem, I don't want to speak for you, that may seem small. That is a typical residential household. Obviously for commercial, industrial customers would be much larger in scope.
Thank you. So our rate change would last for approximately 5 months until the board reassesses rates again in the June-July period, at which point they would go, the newer rates would be adopted as part of the budget and normal rate setting cycle to go into effect for the next fiscal year. We also wanted to highlight some key considerations that the board should be aware of that were discussed between staff and executive committee during the previous discussion. One of the main issues that we're really keeping a very close eye on right now is that PG&E has been arguing that they don't feel the PCIA was calculated correctly during the current year. Essentially, they are arguing that that calculation may potentially need to be revised, and it's something that ongoing discussions are continuing around. What that would potentially mean, if it's an argument that's accepted, is that certain costs that could potentially be in the PCIA this year in 2025 would be being pushed into 2026. And so as a result of that, we are concerned that there is some additional risk of rate volatility that could happen on January 1st, 2026. So one of the ways that was discussed on how to mitigate this was to mitigate risk by maintaining additional liquidity. In other words, we have an expected addition to our net position at the end of this fiscal year, at which point it will be up to the board's discretion to evaluate how to incorporate that into PC's finances and into the future year. By applying it against future year revenue requirements, because our rates are based on the revenue requirement, if you lower the revenue requirement, you lower the rates as well. So that would be up to the board's discretion when we return in June and July to determine how those rates should be set for the next year. One other asset that we have that's significant is the rate stabilization fund, which remains fully funded at approximately $68 million. So the recommendation is to approve staff's proposal to recalculate Eco Plus rates to be set at a net 10% discount to PG&E's generation rates, which would decrease PCE's rates by an average of approximately 0.7 cents per kilowatt hour, effective February 1st, or as soon thereafter as can be implemented. The reason for that last clause is given the current date, it is possible that we wouldn't be able to implement rates until the second week of February rather than immediately, but we would certainly endeavor to get them implemented as soon as possible.
All right, thank you very much. Questions for Justin? Questions? We got a lot of sneezing going on tonight. Okay, yeah. Back in a minute.
So in the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about issues. And I think so forgive me if this isn't appropriate, but do we see then, we lower rates now, do we see a big surge potentially next fiscal year? And how do we need to look at rates and do that?
I'll let staff tackle that.
Is Roy Chu here?
He's gone.
Roy, I'll kick off and then if you wouldn't mind adding, Roy. If we end up having to renegotiate certain contracts to include this or an ITC differential, those are on contracts that are not on our books as yet. So it's certainly a future liability that it's smart to flag. But I don't believe that it would affect us as soon as next year. But Roy, if you would comment on that.
And that's correct. The contracts we've executed so far have not approached us yet on any risks because the rules and the executive orders haven't touched that just yet. So we're on the watch mode. But for projects that we're negotiating now for future procurement, some have approached us, want to negotiate contract provisions that's related to potential IRA modification or IRA repeal, and more importantly, the tariff, import tariff risk. So if we agree to those terms, so we'll have to bear some of those risks, and the risk will come in the form of we enter into this contract knowing that there could be a possibility that we have to forego it because they'll come back to us with a higher price after the impact. And we just have to renegotiate some new contracts. But if everybody is impacted by these, then we can see the market price go up for all of these projects, which can have a significant impact on our timing to achieve our high renewable goals.
And these are for contracts that have commercial operation dates several years out.
Yeah.
That's why there's not there wouldn't be an immediate. It's a good flag though.
And just maybe talk about the rate stabilization fund and the cash on hand.
Yeah, and that balance.
Sure, yes, with relate to that question or just, so the impact of potential tariffs would be years down, a couple years down the road when these facilities came online. And that could drive up our costs, and according to a cost of service rate making, that would potentially drive up rates. The benefit of having a rate stabilization fund as fully funded as we can get it, which is today $68 million, would allow us to potentially not pass on all those costs to customers when those costs are realized in the future. We also have, as I mentioned in the presentation, over 300 days cash on hand, which equates to over $300 million, could be used to help stabilize rates if those costs do materialize.
Yes, please.
So do we have a sense for a range that prices might increase if these tariffs hit?
Oh, the tariff.
Or just sort of general, I mean, I'm hearing this sort of a general,
It's not based on his consistent messaging and tariff.
but I mean, if we're projecting out, I mean, guys,
On the tariff, on the IRA, it could be both. Yeah, if it's both, then it's gonna be very challenging. On tariff, the way we're trying to negotiate this is we're asking developers to give us their baseline assumption, where they build their the price they offer to us right now is based on what kind of assumptions on tariff, what equipment from what country, and how much ITC percentage they're assuming. Are there any additional adders to the ITC benefit? And then we're gonna build a table. If this increases that much, then what will be the price? So we have a predetermined table or formula to determine what the price increase is gonna be. But we don't know, they don't know, nobody knows how much the impact is gonna be, but we can guess what the incremental increase is gonna be on price they offer to us relative to the percent increase in tariff. So we'll build those, that's what we plan to do, and it's subject to negotiation. We plan to build those into our future PPA negotiation, if this risk is something that developers want us to share. There's really not a good method right now to address this risk. The sellers are not willing to take on this risk by themselves.
and I guess I was trying to project that into sort of the customer. I mean, like, what would that mean in terms of cents per kilowatt? Do we have-
Yeah.
And just roughly, I'm not looking for
We just
precise.
can't get there. I mean, I'm just gonna
Get it
say
anyway.
it.
Well, what I was trying to get after was if.
I do wanna be careful, because that's going a little beyond the scope
Is it?
of
Okay.
that's going beyond the scope of the item.
But I just to quickly address, if for say, it drove up our costs by 25%. According to cost of service rate making, that would theoretically pass through to customers, increase their cost by 25%. So 13 cents a kilowatt hour, 25% of that,
Okay.
3 cents, it's not insignificant.
Yeah, no, exactly, because I was just trying.
And also I take that back, because this will only be new projects, so it's a
Yeah.
lot of our stuff's in the ground.
It's
already
blended,
built,
it's, yeah,
blended in.
yeah, and again, I wasn't looking for an exact.
No.
But we could also take the other approach is if the price does jump up so high and considering the affordability, we might not want to, execute these contracts to keep them to the rates low.
Yes, Dr. Lilly.
we shouldn't focus on this tariff thing. It's too far out. It's future deals. We're totally off within the year. I mean, we're looking at a $40 million that we didn't expect. So we haven't been able to predict what's happening with our business in any of the last 5 years. And the reason that we can't is because we're completely subject to PG&E and the California Public Utilities Commission, who acts as PG&E's front guy. And
It's called regulatory cap.
every single time an issue comes up, they've got an excuse, and we don't exactly know where all that's going. So this business is just, we don't, it doesn't make sense to focus. I mean, we need to have the information. The information that you guys have communicated is important because it's one of those variables out there in the future, but it's out there in the future, and dealing with the next year is plenty of a problem.
So the recommendation, the report is only talking about Eco Plus. Are any other rates going to be adjusted?
Not in this
Not in
particular.
this- So Eco 100, everything just.
Well, Eco,
Well, the other, the
Eco
Eco
Plus
100 is the one, is a premium to Eco Plus.
is still,
Penny more, no, penny and.
Penny and a half.
Penny and
So it does technically, you're right, but.
It'll be a greater differential.
The 100% renewable rate is a flat adder on top of the Eco Plus rate.
Oh, it's a flat, okay.
100%.
So it will just adjust with the.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna ask the same
across
question.
across all rates.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up to members of the public, please. If you have any comments, or if there's anything online now.
I do.
Please, come on, Director, Benny.
Thank you very much. So I think this is a win-win. As Director DeGolia was saying, we're reactive here with what happens as a result of PG&E. And PG&E is reactive to lots of other forces that are beyond our control. So I think the fact that we're gonna see a decrease in the rate for now is a great, it's a win. And actually, I think just to make it clear, I'm on the 100% renewable. So my rate will also go down. It'll just be 1.5 cents more than the rate that we're talking about here now today. So yeah, great thing. I recommend it. Vote for it. Thanks.
I really appreciated this discussion at the executive committee. We had a very robust discussion about it, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, $3, it doesn't really matter, but if you think about $3 going up, $3 going down, I'd rather be in the direction of $3 down again, $2 down again, $1, $3, $4, because the way you get to be the highest cost electric state in America is by little tiny incremental things to go up. So we've got to start with little tiny incremental things to come back down. And I'm really grateful for our staff to bring this to us because, and Justin, you have been able to showcase your talents so well in this, and we are so grateful for your joining our organization. So I really want to thank you.
Yep.
You're very welcome. And our staff for bringing this to us and not just sitting on it, because even 5 months of reduction and letting our customers and clients know. And when you add it all up, it's $13 million of additional reduction. We saved 48 million, 2024. Maybe this year we'll be able to save them, 55 million. So let's just keep pushing on that the best we can. And it's not going to, we're such good financial shape. To me, this is a really good investment. Right now we are. Yeah, we've done a really good job. So I want to thank everyone. Does anyone want to make a motion in favor of this?
Before you do.
Yes, sorry.
Nick, I'm gonna just confirm what you said. So we have 300 days cash on hand. In addition to the $68 million in the rate stabilization fund,
No,
or they're
include-
both together?
They're both together.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was.
Yeah.
And we know that the rating agencies look at 180 to 240 is where they
Yeah.
want us, that's the band,
Yes.
is that correct?
They like 250 or something.
Yeah, okay, so we're within that band, I mean, I keep wondering whether indeed we have way too much cash on hand, but that's obviously there is a lot of turbulence in the future. I mean, if the PCIA goes up to 3 cents, basically it's a 4.5 times increase.
Yeah.
Right,
$150.
yeah, right, so it's like people are gonna be receiving a $15 income a month. So in addition,
Yeah.
it dropped 3, just went up 15.
Yeah.
So we have another issue on our hands then. All right, thanks, I'm.
Appreciate that question, clarification. All right, is there anyone that would like to make a motion on this?
So moved.
Thank you very much,
Second.
Director Romero. Thank you very much, Director Taylor. We have a motion, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? No? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, I believe, and thank you very much, Nick, too, also for your hard work on this and overseeing it. Really, we have a great team. Yeah, you have a great team. Thank you. Are there any board member reports or discussion? Okay, yes, Director Lori.
I'll just, thank you. I'll just quickly chip in that, following the start of the new year, the City of San Mateo City Council decided to adopt effectively amendments to their previous reach code cycle codes that sought to ensure that as we get to the end of this cycle, before the new cycle begins, we'll be able to still reduce some greenhouse gas emissions overall from new construction, sort of in the wake of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision that many are familiar with, using a performance-based standard with multiple pathways as opposed to frankly, not enforcing the previous code. And I just want to thank Peninsula Clean Energy for their leadership on that. A number of cities in the county have managed to do this, and I'm thankful that we were able to do the same and with leadership and guidance. Thank you.
I was trying to figure out, I still don't have a great handle on it, but much better because I was trying to figure out the performance base. What does that mean? I knew you guys had adopted it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to check out the new website, which looks amazing. And there is a great slide deck that the website links to on that PC put together, and Silicon Valley Clean Energy, I think, together on the performance-based standards. So I found that helpful. Yes, Director Goins.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for the quality of this website. It is phenomenal. And when we all spend plenty of time going to our various websites, and particularly if we're on the board or council looking at the archived minutes or agendas, and they're so hard to get through. It's like, I go crazy with my town's website because I can never get what I want. This website is totally there. It's amazing. I mean, I went through the board meeting website. Not only does it give everyone who's on the board and on the executive committee, but you go into the history and it's like every year that we've been in operation, all the agendas and the minutes are there. It's awesome.
And it's relatively easy to get to.
Yeah, no,
The archive is much
it's
easier than other
intuitive.
cities. Yeah, absolutely.
Share that with Gwen and team.
I just asked if Sean would send each of us a copy of the agenda along with a small blurb and the link to the website so we can each put it into our e-news and send that out to our residents.
A copy of our goals.
Copy of our goals.
2025.
It is already on the website as a supplemental material next to the agenda packet on the thing.
But I think what Donna's asking for is for us just to do a quick email to the board.
Yes.
We'll clean this up and make it look nice. Of the agenda goals and link to the new website.
Yeah, with a little blurb saying like, we have a new website, please take a look. Because that then can get forwarded to your communications team. They can embed it into your communications element. And that's just a great way that we can reach 150,000 people like overnight. Yeah.
A pretty little graphic
Can we
so
do
that it
that?
catches someone's eye.
Can we do that in our next newsletter? Would that suffice?
I think it's better if it's, I think
Separate?
we
It's an
need-
email we can forward.
Okay.
Forward.
Okay. All right. We shall do that.
I'm so sorry.
It works. It's fine.
Yes.
I just want to invite everyone to our second annual lunar celebration at Daly City Hall on February 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Well, welcome to everyone who's new. Thank you so much for volunteering for this amazing committee. And with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting and we'll see you. Thank you.